Hi, and welcome back to the House of the Dragon Explained series. This is going to be a series of character analysis videos for all major characters of our new show, House of the Dragon. I'll try to keep these as spoiler free as I can, and I definitely won't go over endgame stuff. But still, there are going to be a few minor spoilers in this video. So, we talked about Rhaenyra Targaryen for the Blacks last week, so it only makes sense to continue with her arch enemy, Alicent Hightower for the Greens. Let's jump right in. Who is Alicent Hightower? She is the daughter of Otto Hightower. She accompanied him to King's Landing when Otto was named Hand of the King to King Jaehaerys Targaryen. She quickly got comfortable at court and became very close to the king. As mentioned in the Rhaenyra video, Jaehaerys got very ill and it was Alicent who took care of him. She fed him, dressed him and read to him up until the very end. It was not the end for Alicent in King's Landing, however. Viserys followed Jaehaerys and Alicent became his second wife after Aemma Arryn died. The small council was against this. There were rumors circling around that Alicent was not a virgin anymore, but it is also said that Viserys grew quite fond of Alicent. Together they had 4 children, Aegon II, Aemond, Helena and later Daeron. The first 3 of those children caused a big rift in the relationship between Alicent and Rhaenyra, who were said to be friends in the beginning. From her perspective, and by law, the male children had the legitimate claim to the Iron Throne. As we know, Viserys went against what was decided at the Great Council and still proclaimed Rhaenyra his heir. This basically results in a fight for power. It of course leads up to the Targaryen civil war, but the tension has been there for almost 2 decades. 2 fractions are formed, one supporting Alicent and her children, and the other side who support Rhaenyra. This originates from gowns they were wearing at the tournament for Alicent's and Viserys' 5th year anniversary. Alicent was wearing green while Rhaenyra was wearing black, hence why everyone just refers to them as blacks and greens. Alicent and Rhaenyra were basically both fighting to be the most powerful woman in the 7 kingdoms. If I had to compare it to Game of Thrones, I'd say it's pretty similar to Marjorie and Cersei. Both already come from a position of power and yet it's not enough for them. We already talked about Rhaenyra and how she was shaped to rule from a very young age, and it's quite similar when it comes to Alicent. Her father Otto is heavily supporting her, to the point where it even got him removed from his position as Hand of the King for a while. That's something I'm really curious to see. We know a lot about Rhaenyra and Viserys, but when it comes to Otto and Alicent, the source material mainly just mentions their relationship in context of House Hightower's legacy. But more on that later. Viserys manages to keep things somewhat calm, even though some bad things are already happening. That changes quickly after he dies, and what follows is the Dance of the Dragons. Let's move on to our next point. What can we expect from Alicent Hightower? Just like with Rhaenyra, we will have 2 versions of her character, because as we know, House of the Dragon will have multiple timelines in Season 1. I don't know if there's going to be a time skip or if they will show both Alicents simultaneously, but I think it would make the most sense to show a lot of young Alicent at the beginning. I didn't hear anything about a Jaehaerys casting, but given that we can see the Great Council at Harrenhal in the 2nd teaser trailer, it's quite likely that he shows up, even if it's just briefly in episode 1. If he does, we could of course see how Alicent took care of him before he dies. Either way, it's going to be very important to explore the relationship between Alicent and Rhaenyra as soon as possible. I hope we really get to see their initial bond before we skip to the bitter rivalry. Was it really just Alicent's children, or did something else cause the rift between them? Fire and Blood leaves those things open, which then again makes for a nice little plot for Season 1 if they want to. I mentioned how there were rumors about Alicent's maidenhood. Well, according to Mushroom, Daemon took her virginity. We'll just have to wait and see though. I think we'll see a nice contrast with Rhaenyra and Alicent, with both being counseled and shaped by their fathers. While Viserys and Rhaenyra had a great relationship, they could portray Otto's and Alicent's relationship a little bit differently. More ambitious, more focused on legacy, rather than actual good parenting. Again, I hate to do this every time, but it reminds me of Cersei and Tywin. This would also tie in beautifully with what we can already see in the teaser trailer. Otto inciting his daughter to play the Game of Thrones. I'm expecting to see a lot of that in Season 1. Although it's hard to tell, because Viserys made a lot of mistakes. one of the biggest may have been installing Otto as Hand. I don't want to make it seem like he's a pure manipulator, but he's definitely pulling the strings, and his ambition and his plans are essentially what made Alicent the way she is, extremely power hungry and determined. I hope we get to see how the two fractions develop over time. I would love it if House of the Dragon really takes its time to explore both sides and show who plays a role in this conflict. I haven't heard of a casting for Daeron, so he might be an addition for the later seasons, but I'm expecting to see a lot of Alicent's caring mother side. We can see Alicent rushing at Rhaenyra in the trailer. All I'll say is that this is for good reason, and it's probably going to be one of the highlights of the season. When it comes to the Greens, I think we'll mainly focus on Otto, Alicent and Criston Cole in Season 1. I don't expect to see much, if anything at all, from Daeron, and we will likely focus on the kid versions of Aegon, Aemond and Helaena. Nevertheless, Alicent might counsel, especially Aegon, very early on. House of the Dragon could handle him similarly to how Game of Thrones handled Robb Stark and extend his role, so it'll be important to properly set it up. All in all, Alicent Hightower is another very interesting character in George's world of Ice and Fire, and I can't wait to see the development of her rivalry with Rhaenyra. Although other players of this conflict take the more extreme actions, this chess match between both women fighting for power could make for amazing television. I really like the decision to go for multiple versions of characters in this show. It allows us to be fully invested in this war because we can see it slowly building up. The fandom is going to be nuts and I'm all here for it. I'm neither on Team Blacks or Greens, but I can't wait to see all of the debates. It's going to be mostly political in Season 1, and that is an aspect of A Song of Ice and Fire that I missed dearly in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. Let's move on to our next and last point for today. Who is going to play Alicent Hightower? That will be Emily Carey for the younger version and Olivia Cooke for the adult one. I gotta admit, I only knew Olivia, and I only knew her because she was playing a main character in Ready Player One. When I did my research, however, it became clear that they are both no strangers to big budget production. Emily Carey actually played a younger version of Wonder Woman before, which of course fits now that she'll play the young version of Alicent. From what I can tell, they're both very happy to be in this show, which is always nice to see. Just like with Millie Alcock and Emma Darcy, the casting team did a great job here in my opinion. It's very believable and I can't wait to see both of them playing the Game of Thrones. And that is all I have for today. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this one. Sorry for not uploading as much as usual. I was quite ill and now I'm going to spend a few days at Nova Rock Festival. Don't worry though, there's still going to be content. We will continue with Corlys Velaryon for the Blacks, and there's going to be a video about George's latest Winds of Winter and House of the Dragon update. When I come back, I might have some news regarding my first collabs here on YouTube, but more soon. Take care and see us later.